Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of ZB's Horsepower Talk. As always, I'm ZB, Zach Brown, and joining with me, as always, is former 410 Sprint Car crew chief and mechanic, my dad, Jeff Brown. Before we begin with Daytona 500 week, Fly Eagles Fly, world champions, Super Bowl champions, kick the hell out of the Kansas City Chiefs. Awesome, awesome job. Already ordered my stuff. It's on the way. Should be here in the next couple days.
Yeah, that was a beat down of epic proportions there.
And the score wasn't even as close as what it said. So
no,
but now it's officially racing season. Super Bowl is kind of the end of the football season, and it marks the start of the racing season now. So the Daytona 500, the biggest race in arguably motorsports, but definitely NASCAR. Between that, Indy 500, but is for the biggest in motorsports, but definitely in NASCAR. This is the Super Bowl for NASCAR. Humongous week. We actually have qualifying coming up here shortly, and that just sets the lineup for the duels and the front row. So we'll see what happens there. Traditionally, Hendrick is very good at single car qualifying at Daytona and Talladega, but more specifically the Daytona 500. I don't know how many years in a row that they've had somebody start on the front row now. It's a record, and it probably is going to extend if I had to take a guess today. They did some practice today just to get some laps around the track. Doesn't mean anything.
Not a thing.
And a lot of them were some of them were trying race setups, some of them were trying qualifying setups. So we'll see what trends you'll see at qualifying today. It's going to be completely different than what they were practicing with because they were under the sun. Now they're under the lights. Different conditions for qualifying, but they'll use their notes from the last couple of years.
Yeah, and it was hot today too. It was like 85 here.
Well, there you go. And that'll definitely make a difference. There'll be a lot more grip tonight. But some drivers and teams don't care about the qualifying. It doesn't really make a big difference to them. Like the Toyotas, traditionally, they don't really qualify great. Yeah. They don't really care that much. They just want to make sure they race well, which they usually do, and they always come out of nowhere at the end of the Daytona 500.
Yeah, especially with the format that we have. The time trials mean basically nothing. It's just going to be where you start in your other than the front row is locked in. And then you start the your qualifying race, which will be tomorrow. I think the first one starts at 6:00. So there's where, having a good car that will race is important because I believe it's like an impound. I don't think they can really change the car.
It's traditionally what they do, yeah. And whoever sits the front row, they'll run a few laps tomorrow at the duel, and just to get a feel for it. But they don't want to put themselves in a position where they crash because it's happened before. The front row was crashed in the duel. They got to call it a wreck. So not really a point. Besides just trying to kind of get an idea of what the car's going to race like on Sunday. Now, the last time the Eagles won the Super Bowl, which was technically 2018, do you remember who the Daytona 500 champion was? And it's not someone that doesn't usually win a lot.
No, I don't. It was funny. I was thinking about that earlier today. I was going to look that up. I do not know who won that.
It was the replacement for, I guess, Dale Earnhardt eventually. The number 3, it was Austin Dillon in 2018.
I was going to say somebody like Justin Haley or something,
Justin didn't win the 500. He won the July race.
Okay.
And, so that was a kind of an interesting fact. But we're moving on to the 500 now. Qualifying, we discussed. Now, the duels, that's the most significant thing to get your car right for the 500. Still going to be different conditions than you'll see on Sunday, though.
Yeah, it looks like they're calling for some rain, some wind, which is surprising because we're not going to be there. So you think it would be a nice day.
Well, the wind, I saw wind gusts between 20 and 30 miles an hour, even if the rain holds off. What do you think how will that play a factor in the 500 with that wind?
Well, it sort of depends on which way it's going. You can get a real if it's going down like front or back stretch, it'll actually give those cars quite a push going down the straightaway, which will change your entry speed quite a bit going into the cars. Or going the other way, you got the headwind coming into there, which is going to throw actually more downforce onto those cars. And then you get a crosswind, and the cars are all over the place anyway. Add a crosswind to the thing, it can make it a very interesting race.
Well, the one thing I want to dive into, it's the start of the season, and we always like to give predictions. We given predictions for the Final Four for the entire year. We've given kind of like dark horses for championships. I had you do this. This is a long list for both of us, but we are predicting the 16 drivers to make the 2025 NASCAR playoffs. So go ahead with your list of 16 drivers you think. Now, I'm assuming about the first 8 to 10 is the ones you would expect.
Yeah, I was going to say the first 12 are pretty easy to go through. The last four, so these are in no particular order. These are just as I thought of them. So we have Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Alex Bowman, Chase Briscoe, Josh Berry, SVG I have in here, Michael McDowell, and Austin Cindric.
Oh, so you have some upsets this year.
Well, I figure there's probably going to be four that probably come in on points. I don't think we're going to get that many different winners.
And I'm thinking, and you're guessing SVG wins a road course at some
say
point.
He's got a very good shot at winning because they have 6 road courses. So
I'm surprised you threw Briscoe in there. He's been struggling, but it's a new team, and Joe Gibbs stuff is pretty good. So we'll see how he does with that new team. Josh Berry is actually the most surprising one I think that you picked. And I was thinking about him. He's actually not on my list.
Well, it's one of those that they are really, really good at these super speedways.
Yep.
It would not be a big shocker if Josh Berry comes out winning this thing on Sunday.
Yeah, him. Shoot, we mentioned it, Justin.
Spoiler alert, he's not in my fantasy, but hey,
And we'll touch on fantasy here in a little bit. So here are my 16 drivers to make the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. So you've got the obvious ones. You've got Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Joey
Logano. Put
Logano.
Tyler Reddick in there. Oh wow, I must have missed him. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I did not put Tyler Reddick in there. Okay, interesting.
Blaney, Logano, Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher. I put Kyle Busch in there. I think he'll actually make the playoffs, and I think he will actually get a win this year. Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, Bubba Wallace, Riley Herbst.
Okay.
And SVG. Those two are battling for the Rookie of the Year, and I think they both make the playoffs this year.
Cool.
I think Riley Herbst, and I mentioned this, and that was the end of last year's show. I said Riley Herbst is going to knock off a win or two this year. I expect it. And I expect SVG to win one of these 8,000 road courses they have. So that's how I think they get in. I think there will be at least 14 different winners this year.
Think so?
And possibly even more, but maybe ones that aren't even full-time drivers will get wins this year. It wouldn't surprise me if this is not the only race that Justin Allgaier is going to race in the Cup Series for Dale Jr., depending on how it goes. If they don't tear up the car and they actually get a decent finish, I expect him to race at another super speedway or potentially another racetrack.
I could see him running Charlotte for sure.
Could. Well, he had such a good run last year in the 5.
Yeah.
When he was filling in for Larson, so I could see that.
Unless they need him for Larson.
Well, they have not said who the backup driver is. I actually read an article last week, and Larson is trying to have Carl Edwards be the driver that fills in.
I thought that was for testing the car in qualifying for the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro.
I think they also wanted him, Carl, as just in case for the Indy 500.
That'd be cool. That'd be a big fan draw for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know how much truth there is to it, or if even Carl's interested in doing that at all. Who actually just got inducted to the Hall of Fame this past weekend. But yeah, so those are the 16 that I have. I didn't have Chase Briscoe, so or Josh Berry. I did think about Josh Berry. But the unique thing about this, I have all of Trackhouse and all of 2311 making the playoffs.
Okay.
So we will see. 16 is a big field. I actually was watching clips from Denny Hamlin's podcast this week, and he's hearing a rumor that they want to expand the final race to 5 driver. And he's like, that's ridiculous. You're making that even worse. He's like, that's not how you want to make it harder, not easier to get in. So I was thinking of possible alternatives you can have if they keep insisting on not doing the same format, like go back to the old school format. You have the top 2 drivers in points from the entire year, and they race for the final championship. Just those two. It's like a whole shootout with those two at the final race of the season. They build up through the entire year, and they make it into the final race. Whoever the final 2 are, they go at it. If I think that would be just as exciting, and you still have to rely on what you do throughout the year instead of having to just win and then you can finish 40th every week.
You could almost do that with the top 4, and just not have any kind of playoff. And
I still think 2 is just how exciting was it when it was Tony versus Carl about a decade ago, when it was just 2 people you were watching and they're going head to head and they were just nose to tail at each other. Yeah, and Tony had tiebreaker, so
yeah,
that's how exciting that was, and I think that would be a potentially good alternative they would have. Now, they don't even listen to the drivers, let alone listen to the fans, so I don't know what NASCAR can do. The ratings did come out for the All-Star race the Clash, sorry, the Clash at Bowman Gray, and they were the second highest in the last few years. It wasn't quite as high as the Clash at the Coliseum, which I'm not really buying all of that, the TV rankings. But I guarantee you the ratings at the actual track were way higher than any Clash has been, at least in a decade. And we figured that.
Yeah, it was good to see. At least it's on a real racetrack, not a made up inside a football stadium type thing. So a lot of history, a lot of tradition. I kind of wish, getting back to the Clash real quick. I know we talked a little bit about last week. I kind of wish they'd have got a little more into the tradition when they were doing it, or at least maybe I missed some of it. Because a lot of people, if you're tuning in, you don't really know. You just see like what the hell they run on this little tiny track for. But they didn't really. They kind of touched a little bit, be like, hey, Richard Petty ran here. But there's a lot more to it than that.
Well, Flow Racing had a really, really cool small, like a short documentary on YouTube that they released, and it was talking about the tradition of Bowman Gray Stadium and how it became the Madhouse and all the current drivers that are racing there. They kind of how they did with dirt, and they talked about the Chili Bowl a lot with the current midget racers that race that full time. They did that the same thing for Bowman Gray, so it was neat. I watched the first little bit of it, and it was really cool. I might even go back to watch it. I did share it on my YouTube, on the YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to check that out. Now, before we give our fantasy and our picks for the Daytona 500, also there is the truck race in Xfinity, but we're trying to make this a lot simpler for everybody to follow and not really give Xfinity and truck predictions. Especially truck series, we don't follow as much, but I will say one thing about these 2 races. There's going to be a lot of mayhem, but the trucks and Xfinity usually put on a really, really good season opening race. So I'm expecting a lot of excitement. Truck races is Friday night. So you might see some broken hearts on Valentine's Day. Ha.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I know. I got some good dad jokes. And then Saturday afternoon is the Xfinity race. So we'll see some new faces. You've got Junior Motorsports has a lot of new guys there, and went back to Junior's old number 8 font for the number.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And that'll be an interesting year for the Xfinity series. Again, we're going to follow along with it. We'll watch it. We'll mention it after they conclude the races. But to dive in with details is just a lot easier just to follow along with the Cup Series. Same with sprint cars. We will mention it and NHRA. NHRA is actually a lot easier to dive into because it's once every couple weeks. Same with IndyCar, so we'll go more with IndyCar as well. Just the week to week, it's a lot of NASCAR races to cover.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so right before we give our stuff for fantasy, DraftKings has the odds for the NASCAR Championship this year, and obviously Daytona 500 is the NASCAR Championship. And this is really about all of the books now. The NASCAR Championship, the favorite shocker right now is Kyle Larson. Uh, that's going to be the favorite one everybody knows right now. But Christopher Bell is right on his heels. Those are the two favorites for the NASCAR Championship. For the Daytona 500, the favorite is Denny Hamlin, and somehow Kyle Larson's right behind him. Don't put money on Larson. I'm not, even if he wins, I'm definitely not jinxing my damn self doing that or him. Don't I don't buy Larson. Larson's okay at the Daytona 500. Last couple years, he's finished top 10, top 15. He stayed out of trouble. You might see him lead some laps, but somehow trouble finds him at these races, and I don't know
it
what
don't
it is.
matter if
It's
he's
just
up
his
front
luck.
or in the middle of the pack. It seems like he's, he can be running first or second and get spun out by the car right behind him.
So that being said, our NASCAR fantasy, and let's crack open another one of these bad boys.
You know what? We do not have them down here.
You don't?
Nope.
And you're right near damn Daytona.
At least we went into Walmart and they did not have them.
Probably because they're sold out. How damn cool are those cans?
Yeah. I didn't
Good
check.
on you again, Bush Light. Now you should do another one for the Indianapolis 500. That would be pretty cool.
That would be very cool.
All right. So go ahead with your NASCAR fantasy lineup for the Daytona 500, and we will give our pick after we give our fantasy lineups.
Okay, so some of these may have some little bit of shockers in here. Some of them are pretty, obvious. So my top 5 drivers to start right now, I have Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace, and slight shocker here, Todd Gilliland, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., last year's Daytona 500 winner. And in my garage, I have Kyle Busch. I got him there, so I got a feeling this year on him. So in our head-to-head matchup, or featured matchups, we have Joey Logano versus Denny Hamlin.
These aren't easy matchups.
No. I picked Denny Hamlin on that one. Chase Elliott versus Ryan Lane is another one. They're almost even odds on this thing. Chase Elliott, I have on this one. Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch, and these are even odds. Both of those are the same. Not jinxing Larson, so I picked Kyle Busch on that one. And Bubba Wallace over William Byron. I said Ricky Stenhouse won last year. William Byron won the Daytona 500.
Yeah, Ricky was 2 years ago.
Yeah. So I got Bubba Wallace over the defending champion, William Byron.
These matches were terrible.
That's tough.
It's tough to do. All right, so here's my lineup. In my starting lineup, I have Chase Elliott. I have Joey Logano. I have Bubba Wallace, Austin Dillon, 2018 winner. See if he has a little bit of deja vu with the Super
I was
Bowl.
considering him.
And I have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as well. And in my garage, I have Chris Buescher. I think that car will draft really well. Just depends if it stays out of trouble.
Cars are pretty good.
They are, and Brad will have them set up. All right. And the matchups with Joey Logano versus Denny Hamlin. I'm going with Joey Logano, the defending champion. Not of the race, just of the whole series. Chase Elliott versus Ryan Blaney. I'm going with Chase Elliott in this one. Larson versus Kyle Busch. I'm not picking Larson ever in any super speedway racing, so I'm going with Kyle Busch. And Bubba Wallace versus William Byron. I do have Bubba Wallace over William Byron. Their good picks are William Byron, of course. Brad Keselowski says to avoid Kyle Larson. Yes, they're right this time. They said avoid Tyler Reddick, which he did win Talladega last year. So
yeah, that's a little bit of a surprise, especially at his odds at plus.
And they're talking about like, well, they finished this and that. I'm like, it's if they get caught up in wrecks, like you never know. Like it's just so random if they get caught up in wrecks. And the sleeper is AJ Allmendinger, which I think he's going to be a sleeper in a lot of races this year.
I think so too. So
Good to see AJ back into the Cup Series.
At plus 5,500, AJ wouldn't be a bad pick to put $10 on him.
$10 to win $550.
Yep.
So that's not too shabby. All right. Our picks for the Daytona 500 winner. Who do you got for the Daytona 500?
I have him in my lineup. Maybe not starting, but I had the feeling I got Kyle Busch going to finally get. He's been close the last couple years by a matter of when that caution flag has come out. I got Kyle Busch this year. Mom's pick is Chase Elliott.
Well, Mom and I are in agreement right here. I mentioned it after the Clash, how there could be history with father and son winning the Clash and Daytona 500 in the same year. I do have Chase Elliott winning the 2025 Daytona 500.
Okay.
And I think that will wrap it up today. Qualifying starting.
Do we want to talk about Volusia?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Forgot about the sprint car. That wraps up our NASCAR stuff, but qualifying is about to happen after Mike Joy gives a dissertation and introduction. Volusia did not disappoint.
Not at all.
It was.
Now, if you look at the box score, yes, the person who started on the front row won every night. But it wasn't that easy. There was a lot of passing throughout the field. The track was great shape for the amount of racing that they had, because they had the sprint cars, they had the UMP modifieds, which ran 3 features every night. The track was wide. There was a top, there was a bottom, there was about half-ass a middle, and the track's fast. So I mean, it was Donnie Schatz can't qualify, starts deep in the field every night, gets top 5, top 10.
Yeah, there was passing. There was definitely passing. It was exciting. You get caught up in lap traffic, it is anybody's race then.
So first, let's see, Thursday night,
Wednesday.
Carson Macedo.
Wednesday night.
Was it Wednesday?
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday is what they had. So Carson Macedo.
Yeah, you're right. Carson Macedo wins the first night. Thursday night, Christopher Bell in the 69K battling Kyle Larson for the win.
So, yeah, let's talk about that, how impressive that was. Now, Christopher Bell was impressive the entire week. I didn't see exactly what happened Saturday, but Wednesday, Thursday,
we'll talk about Saturday's dad called me.
Okay. Well, Wednesday, they started, 4th or something in the race, 4th, 6th, something like that. They made the dash in the first 3 nights. And they had some issue. Either he hit the wall or it was a flat before he hit the wall.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he had a flat tire.
So the car was doing great, and then it just had some sort of issue, which took him out of the race. I wouldn't have been surprised if he was in contention for that one. Now, Thursday night, that was incredible. And you mentioned to me how smooth Christopher is behind the wheel. And it's funny that when there's new drivers in the 69K, they're kind of hesitant to go on the bottom and don't realize how good that thing will stick on the bottom no matter what. Now, again, nobody runs the bottom right now like Lance does, because Lance would, with that car, that was just a match made in heaven the way they ran the bottom. That's just how it's set up. That's how he races. But the bottom was where Christopher needed to be a lot in this whole entire week. And when he actually trusted the bottom, had it stick, man, that thing looked good.
Yeah. And the one thing, there was people talking on Facebook, the first thing they mentioned, traction control. Well, There's a picture of Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson coming off the 4th turn, smoke rolling off that right rear. Traction control my ass.
Yeah.
There's traction control. It was on the rev chip. That son bitch was pegged coming off that thing, because it was a drag race and won by half a second.
That was awesome.
Or 500ths of a second.
It was photo finish.
I mean,
I wish that race was 40 laps. I mean, they would have went back and forth at it. It would have been slide job after slide job at some point. The 2 different styles of racing, though, because I thought I would expect Christopher Bell to just run the crap out of that thing like Larson does. He's very smooth and very meticulous with his racing throughout the race, and it's really awesome to see. And then you just see Larson just ballsing it in every freaking corner. It's completely different, and it's really exciting. And so that made it for a really, really good race. every fan had to be on their feet there. Volusia had a great crowd too, so that was fantastic. And I just happened to just out of corner of my eye see Elio talking to Jeff Gordon right now. Forgot he's going for the 500, but that was awesome. So hats off to Donnie, Christopher, and the entire 69K team. They brought it to Volusia, especially Thursday night. So Friday night, kind of opposite.
Yep, Friday night, Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson start on the front row, and it was just Kyle Larson. I think he led every lap. I don't think Christopher Bell, but it was close. I mean, it was, they got in the lap traffic. It got close there at the end, and a caution came out just at the right time where, catching Larson and passing were two different things. But it got pretty interesting in the whole thing. So we had, two cup drivers winning Thursday night, Friday night. So we get to the 20,000 to win Saturday night finish. Right off the bat, Christopher Bell, they said they were engine trouble and they were changing an engine. So they told Dad they burnt down his engine. He was not happy. So
how they
get out in the heat
that?
race and only made a couple laps and pulled back in. So
How they managed to burn it down? Like what happened?
Dad calls me, and Dad never calls me. He calls me up. He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, they didn't actually burn my engine down." He's like, "It was a problem in the rear, and when they changed engine, it was still there." Now, which makes me want to come back. That first night, he did hit that wall. Could something have broken in that rear from just a slight contact on on that wall? It's very possible.
And finally,
I
just
didn't even
gave
think
way
about
after
it
a couple
until
nights.
we were discussing that earlier. But so Dad was pretty happy they did not burn down the engine. Which down here in Florida, it's not hard to do. You're at sea level. The air was pretty good. I mean, you got to give those things some fuel.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can suck a valve pretty easy.
Yeah, because I didn't get to see the entire race on Saturday. And I didn't really follow along too much. I was working, but I was like, "Where's Bell at? He's not in the feature." Like, what happened? And so yeah, so when things don't go great, they're not the 69K
They're not
Facebook,
set up
social
to
media.
have
Yeah, they're not
whole
they're not the
cluster
best at
to
giving
get
out bad information, but I mean I get it because they could be frustrated and there's a lot of stuff going on. But I'm like I want to know what happened.
And some of that you're relying on what Christopher Bell feels. He felt like a bad vibration, like the thing was blowing up, and it turns out it was something in the rear. And maybe some of that's just not being in a sprint car all the time. Just on what he kind of felt and heard.
Well, I want to go back to the people that are claiming traction control or cheating or whatever. You do realize the Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson are the two best drivers that are on that track. There's a reason they are Cup Series drivers and championship contenders every year.
Somebody's got to bitch about somebody winning.
Well, they're the best in the world for a reason. So if they wanted to race the entire World of Outlaw season, they would be 1 and 2 in the championship. There's no question, and honestly, I think Larson would steal this championship like it was nothing. It would dominate a whole year. If just how as good as that crew is, as good of a driver he is, and the best crew chief in the garage when they are racing. Yeah, Paul Silva. That's yeah. I don't think it'd be a competition, and I mean I'm not putting down any of the World of Outlaw guys, but those guys are just so good.
Yeah. But Saturday night is the 20,000 to win. Kyle Larson again takes home the first 3 nights. You get a small gator. Last night you get the big gator. So another one. Kyle Larson pretty much
first time he's got that.
Yeah. It got close because it started getting rubber down at the end, and all of a sudden, that's when the racetrack kind of sucks. So you get the first one to get down to the rubber is going to win because you can't get off of it and you can't pass.
Kyle mentioned that in the poster. He's like, yeah, it might have sucked by the fans watching it, but he's like, it wasn't easy by any means when we were actually racing.
Cars are also in the rubber, so you can't, and they showed the top 3 finishers. Their right rear tires were bald. I mean, it looked like a drag sled.
I mean, four full days of racing on that track, that'll do it. And I don't know if it rained any of the days to help get that track.
I don't know,
run
not
in,
down here
so.
any this week. So,
Yeah,
but
no.
hats off to Volusia for having nicely prepared track
Well, there's a
for
reason
all that racing.
there's a reason they do the season premiere or whatever, the first race of the year every
They
single
did a
year.
great job, and hats off to them. Great crowd. Glad to see everybody went out to see it. I wish I could have got up to them. Had prior engagements there on Saturday. I'd have loved to have been up there Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I think the qualifying's happening right now. Right now, Justin Haley's on the pole, but that doesn't mean anything right now. There's no great cars yet. A couple cars are on the track. They're interviewing Junior right now. He definitely does not look excited or anything. I think Daytona is going to be a good week. I think it'll be a good omen for how the year's going to go. A lot of these cars are sharp. They have some really cool paint schemes. I've just happened to see them go all around. Elias is cool. That Wendy's one is neat.
He's in the Wendy's car.
Yeah. All right. Well, that does it for this week. I don't think any Outlaws are racing this week because Daytona, they don't usually race the same week as Daytona, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're off this week. Again, we'll kind of mention that, hey, they're racing this week, and then we'll cover just kind of what we did right now. And yeah, that'll do it for this week. We'll see how our fantasy does. We'll put it up obviously on the screen. If you guys are listening to it, go back. If you want to follow us on our fantasy, I wouldn't.
It'll be a battle for second behind Mom because she'll somehow randomly pick some random person and they'll win.
Yeah. Well, it's good news for Chase. Usually when she picks somebody, he does really well. So we will see. All right. Well, make sure you guys like, follow, subscribe, whatever you're watching and wherever you're watching this from. Follow on all social media platforms and anywhere you get your podcast. Down as much as I can of this before the 500 because I can't drink on the 500 since I work. Yeah. They did help the Eagles win, so
yeah. Hey, Anheuser-Busch, send a couple cases there. Send some to North Carolina, and for some reason we don't have it here in Orlando area, so.
I'll be honest, it doesn't have to just be Busch Light. Those cans specific. You can be anything Anheuser-Busch wants to send. That's fine.
Yeah, we're good. Maybe nothing non-alcoholic. What's the point of that?
Yeah, don't send me. I don't want water. Just you're send. Yeah, don't do that. But we will see you guys next time.
All right, bye everybody.